Are we up yet? I have it in another window to see if we're live yet. All right, we are live. Are we? Yes. Okay, we are up and streaming to the internet. Something we don't do terribly often. But welcome to the Culturally Effed 10th anniversary celebration stream. I am, of course, your host and Culturally Effed creator, now renamed Furry Film Burrow creator, Arrkay, and joining me, as always, is our lovable writer, Tempo. Oh, and Sunshine. Hi, Sunshine. This is my dog, Sunshine. She wants attention. But please introduce yourselves, Tempo.
I think we have an echo. I'm hearing you twice.
If you're watching
hi, I'm Tempo.
Here, you have to pick one.
Sure, one sec. Okay. No, it looks like I'm not updating in the stream. It's just a static image of... Okay. So, I'm Tempo. I'm the staff writer at Culturally Effed. I'm the voice of Uplift, and I am the writer for various episodes, and I... let's see.
I got your stream back.
I've been... Yeah. I've been working on the project on the channel for 5 years, I want to say. And in addition to my work here, I am also the writer of the Six is Wild and Windfall series. I have written books for the Ironclaw RPG, and I'm also the creator of the Lackadaisy and Nordgard card games. Yeah. So happy to be here. We can get the show going.
Sure. So here on our other screen, I'm just going to let this play, and I'm going to see if I can't juggle playing back of that and bring up my notes.
Yeah, so Underbite and I met at a furry party.
So what's going to happen is we're going to hear audio from an interview Underbite and I did on Creator 10 podcast. That was a local podcast that's helped platform local creators in Toronto.
Underbite and I met at a furry party. There's a monthly dance party here in Toronto called Howl. I was writing Culturally Effed. It was still in the script phase. Didn't even have a camera or any way to shoot it. My whole plan was to do this all solo. And then I see him playing pool. I walk over and spark a conversation.
It was shortly after I moved into Toronto from Newfoundland, and I'd only been living there for about 3 years, but it was just like, all right, I'm studying art. I wanted to show people what I'm doing. I want to see if I can meet some people in the community. If not, just make a painting or two for maybe meet somebody you can start a project with or just something bigger. I want to just start working with new creators out here in Toronto. So,
yeah, I know one thing I'm bad at is graphic design. I needed a logo. I needed the YouTube banner and a thumbnail template or something. So we spark up, and I learned he went to school for graphic design, and I'm like, holy crap, this is perfect, because I need a graphic designer. So it started out, okay, I'll do your logo for $40. Okay, I'll do your logo for $20 and a beer. I'll do your logo for free. I'll come over to your house every week and film this for you.
We are Culturally Effed.
So that is the very, very origins of Culturally Effed, with me and Underbite meeting at a bar. That was the preliminary script writing phase all the way back in 2014. And our first episode was published, I believe, March 14th, 2015. So this weekend is, in fact, the absolute 10-year anniversary. So yay! Happy anniversary! So I don't know when did you first learn about Culturally Effed, Tempo?
I learned about it on a banner ad on Fur Affinity.
Oh yeah, I remember buying that.
I think that I saw it on FA and I jumped over to see what it was because I hadn't really seen a project doing this kind of cultural analysis. It was on my radar for some time before I ended up having an idea for a script for that Star Fox script. And I just kind of like the idea. Like, I'm, my partner is an anthropologist, and like, I often end up talking about things in an academic kind of anthropology sense with her, and it's when I have gone to furry conventions with her, that's how we kind of talk about what happens. Like, okay, well, here there's obviously a social norm where if you're in this kind of costume and acting this kind of way, then you're signaling to people that it's okay for you to be hugged by strangers. But if you're a scary robot dragon, then people will not be as eager to run up and hug you because you're signaling them differently, et cetera, et cetera. And so yeah, like, and the fandom's a really interesting space. Like we call it the fandom as if it's like identical to like the Sherlock Holmes fandom or like the Marvel fandom or things like that, but like it's really just a weird subculture.
Somewhere between a community and an art genre.
Yeah, because what we like when we have these like cultural expectations within a subculture, like that moves it a little bit beyond just like, hey, we all really, really like, I don't know, The Wheel of Time or Star Wars or whatever.
YouTube was a very different place back when we started 10 years ago. And there wasn't a lot of furry creators on there at the time. A lot of furry representation on YouTube when you searched for furries was like cringe compilations. And you had an occasional Fursuit performer doing skits and stuff, or importing their shorts from Vine. But it was really even just a couple years into making Culturally F did we get really serious creators showing up on that platform. So these next, we're going to see the original opening title, animation by Underbite, and the music was done by Cord Kitty. And then we're going to watch a clip of the very first episode, which really like set the tone for the first few seasons of Culturally F. And I think it helped pretty well, but you can tell that our production value has shifted dramatically.
What is culturally effed? Who is culturally effed? Why is culturally effed? In this
It's
series,
so retro.
we will be looking at anthro characters in our world.
It's so nostalgic
Found everywhere
now because we
from
haven't seen that. I haven't seen that
Roman
one in a
mythology
while.
to Saturday morning cartoons. Great icons like
Just
Walt
adjusting
Disney
the volume
or
on the
Amon
stream
Ra.
to make sure I'm not
We'll be
blowing
going
any speakers
everywhere,
out.
from Anthrocon to The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, so it like the opening has held up pretty well, and the original concept of the first few episodes was to take us through all of history. I'm going to pause it here. Take us through all of like art history, basically from the cave paintings to modern digital internet art. And here we have our first array of thumbnails. I believe most of these are done by Underbite. I think I did the drag queens one in the corner, and I think I did the bottom three actually. Yeah, so the first few was very high concept, even though we were pretty base level creators at the time. We did get a boost of, I think, our first 100 subscribers when we got a shout out on Furcast. But that was ages ago. So I believe what play next, so check my notes. Yeah, we're gonna have our Yif Mur commercial, which was done in promotion of our Toy Ed episode. And then we're just gonna watch a little clip show of season 1. And we'll talk about season 2 after that. And our
Far off in the infinity universe, the youth intergalactic fight force is fighting to save the galaxy for total domination of the mighty Earth-Sign Rocket Republic, led by the fearless Goatee with the stupendous sidekicks Ramshot, Blue Heron, and the almighty Pegasister. It is under this powerful force that will stop Baron von Brainbear.
My apologies for the audio mix.
And his team of evil dudes, Speedbug, Robot, and Cow. Toys on sale now! It's up to you to save the Affinity Galaxy, otherwise leaving us culturally effed.
Each sold separately, batteries not included.
I still have all those toys in a shoebox somewhere.
Right. This is going to be one of our seasons. We're going to have a throwback season that's all this.
Yeah, that was a latex monkey mask I made for a Planet of the Apes Halloween costume.
Helmets.
And I managed to get a couple more uses out of it here. But
What are you looking
latex
at?
doesn't age particularly well. It tends
Don't
to
bother
shrink
me
over
when I'm
time
working.
and dry out. So that is unfortunately lost. So we have
Right.
our season 2 thumbnails. So after our season 1, which was really a linear progression through history, season 2 we start to just go off on topics that we find interesting. When we hit 666 subscribers, I did an episode about Satanism. We talked about furries living together. We started to get a little more theoretical when we talked about post-furry and using SpongeBob as an example of like personas that aren't just fluffy mammals. It was a bit of a bust of an episode. I remember it really fondly when we talked about Renaissance art in Tempting St. Anthony. And we did one about like astrology and anthropomorphic animals throughout space and like craters and myths and constellations and stuff. And furry lingo, of course. Now every furry YouTube channel has a furry lingo episode, but I can proudly say we were one of the first to do so. That was one of our first big hits on the channel.
Have we got any new lingo?
That's a great
Since-
question, Tempo. I'm not
Since
sure.
that episode came out, like the fandom has been going so long that like, you know, you have an initial burst of like terminology as you need to have words to define new concepts, but like after that it sort of like only happens when you have a new concept come in. And so I wonder, like, I guess like things, you know, like stickers, like we talk, like, but that's not really specific to us. That's specific to like chat programs. Ghosting, is that relatively new? I guess I didn't
think
hear
so.
that for a
It's
while.
not really unique to furry ghosting. I think
True.
it comes from the dating world. That is food for thought for perhaps another video. Let's hit play on our season 2 clip show.
Effed. Talking gibberish to one another online is culturally effed. Anthropomorphic sponges are culturally effed. Anthro animals tempting saints is culturally fictional drumming furs, gaming furs, and
As you can see, we've developed a catchphrase.
Hexaconta hexaphobia is culturally effed.
The dance of the sugar plum furries is culturally effed.
Are culturally effed. Culturally effed.
Would you like a hug, sir?
The hug is the furry handshake.
This was not a very good video.
Those of you who have better things to do, here's what went down.
Okay, so that was our season 2 clip show. Lots of memories brought back there. If you've attended any conventions with me in the past year, you may have already seen this presentation, but this is the first time we're doing the presentation with Tempo. And we are quickly coming up to Tempo's tenure on Culturally Effed. But before that, we still have a few other videos to go through, like our Centaurs video, which someone gave me. Oh, it's not here. I do have a physical memento from the Centaurs video. Someone gave me like a neon Centaur badge. We had a guest writer come in to do our Anthro Anime 101 script, and they actually showed up to our presentation of this at Midwest Fur Fest. Zootopia came out, and these Zootopia and Tony Tigergate were early attempts to try to do something really timely with a fast turnaround. So we managed to get into an early screening of Zootopia, and we like hammered out a script really fast to try to get it out in like the same week. And Tony Tigergate is, of course, when Tony the Tiger was getting sexually harassed on Twitter by horny gay furries and made media attention. So we tried to do a video about that too. But we're also still trying to find all the nooks and crannies of furries to talk about. We talk about poetry. We try to see if Batman was a secret furry because he's basically wearing a fursuit and his girlfriend is a cat lady. We talk about one of the things I grew up on, which is gargoyles, and we start to also do videos dedicated to species like foxes and wolves and centaurs. My partner wrote our BoJack Horseman analysis, and the guy who wrote Watership Down died that we did a video dedicated to Watership Down. This is also the time when we were trying to like fight the algorithm with these timely videos and try to crank out content much faster than we really should have been. And we got some crappier episodes because of it. I'm not going to lie. Those episodes just weren't very good because they were rushed. And that's just not the style Culturally Eft is really known for or good at.
Well, and that's sort of a thing that's across the YouTube spectrum. Like, it's not really specific to furry because, like, there are totally channels I watch that put out, like, hey, I'm going to do a quick video of me sitting here talking about a thing and I'll show you something. And they don't have high production values. It'll just be someone who does something. And then there are other ones, like, because what I'm thinking of is, like, like, say, like, Technology Connections will totally have, like every November they just have, like, he has, like, a no effort November where it's just him talking about some electronics thing. And then compare that to, like, Ristic Studies, which, like, every single Magic the Gathering card analysis is like super in depth and has transitions that, are custom made for everything and has like high res art and interviews the creators. But those only come out every like 6 months or a year.
For sure. Here we have Rusty Shacklefur 1.0 with his original eyes in our storage space studio. That was just my storage room that we did our very best to turn into a feasible studio. We filled the rafters with foam, put up these wood panel doors to try to block out the concrete, wheeled in this shelf we spray painted. And this is also the era when we started doing regular EFT updates, where it was just basically comment response videos. Nothing too crazy. And of course, here's our big rebrand. We're coming up fast on the era of Tempo, I promise.
So where did the name come from? Like, was that an Underbite thing or
Culturally
like?
Eft. So that was workshopped with a friend of mine at the time as we were laying down the scripts of season 1. Even before I met Underbite, we were calling it Culturally Eft.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was funny. It's a bit tongue in cheek. It's a little sexy and risque.
Yeah.
But F obviously stands for furry, and it always has. No matter what someone tells you, that's part of the joke.
I've had people very sheepishly, like outside the fandom, very sheepishly say, "Oh, I watched that YouTube channel that you sent me, the culturally fucked one," and I'm like, "It's not that.
It's just F."
Oh, I've told lots of people that that's what it's called. Oh no. It's
Maybe
furry because it's only furry things.
Maybe I should update our tags then to include that. I believe we have some clips coming up on this.
Well, and people don't expect it. Like, people outside of the fandom don't think about the fandom as much as we in the fandom do. And so it's natural for them to sometimes just be like, if I saw that as a sticker on a lamppost in the abstract, what would I assume? I would try to apply it to the, thing that, like, I would, I most often say effed and say, oh, it's effed up or something. But yes. And so it is, and that's sort of like just how how things go when you like are a little bit of a provocateur, like you're a little bit subversive. Like sometimes that is how you get attention so that people will go and check out your thing.
Absolutely. So we're moving into an era of YouTube where they were really pushing the playlist as like a format. So we did several playlists in this period. This first one was Fake Furry News, where we cut actual news clips about furries. Most of them were kind of funny and cringy of the time, with our own fake furry headlines. And this is my old roommate, Lauren, who helped out.
Teens being pressured to draw cute pictures and hug people. After Juggalos, the FBI has declared that furries are now a gang.
General Mills embarrassed by serial mascot sex tape.
And also, a furry tries to get into a club claiming that he's over 21 in dog years. More at 11. The corgi community is calling for a request for lower stairs, chairs, and countertops.
In a recent poll, 95% of people think that vegetarians should not eat animal crackers.
Also, abstinent activists declare a war on hugs at local furry convention.
It's just safe.
It is a lot safer.
It's much safer.
When someone comes up to me, like,
So this
I
was
feel
pretty much all improv. We had some headlines written down in front of us,
It's not okay.
but all of the
a
other
mysterious lump
bits
in a squirrel
were just
fursuit
made up on the
was
spot.
revealed to be squirrels.
What's that pin?
Oh, what is that pin? Which one?
Is that just a flower?
Much safer.
When someone comes
Yes,
up to
I think
me,
so.
like,
Oh,
I
that
feel
there.
it.
I think
It's
Sailor Moon or maybe a She-Ra pin.
Okay, good.
A mysterious lump in a squirrel fursuit was revealed to be squirrels.
Squirrels, yes. So here is a lost episode of Culturally Effed. The audio was just so bad that I decided it would be better for the channel if I just took the video down. So there is a gap in the playlist where episode 37 lives. That was originally an episode about H.P. Lovecraft and Cthulhu and all of the horrible monsters of that canon.
Which are anthro.
Many of them
they
are,
do
yeah.
like
Anthro shrimp and things.
yeah. And
H.P.
like
Lovecraft,
it's
famously afraid of the ocean and black people. He's the
And-
two greatest fears.
and like it's really like the visuals are really fun, but like I'm also it's also a bit of a line you walk there where you're like, okay, like we can do better than this. Do we like prune the least amazing work and so that the average experience is better, or do we leave as much content up as possible even if some of it isn't up to our current standard?
Yeah, and like we were talking over it, but if you could barely hear that audio, it was really unsalvageable. Nowadays, there is software out there, and even Adobe Premiere has some audio cleanup stuff. So if I really cared to, I could maybe feed it through that and clean it up again. But that's just time and effort. I'm not sure I'm gonna ever get to. It might be the kind of thing where it might be more fun and easy to just re-record it with an update.
Mhm.
So following the Cthulhu H.P. Lovecraft episode, there was this longer fursuit skit we did where Rusty summons a friend. And we're going to watch it's a longer clip, but we're just going to watch all of it because I do not have a time constraint, unlike when I do this in a panel format.
I'm going to look at Arrkay's bookshelf to see if he has anything on where I can find some friends.
I'll
Oh,
switch it
whoa, what's
over.
this? The Omnomnomicon. And look, it has a picture of a kitty. How can anyone not trust a book with a picture of a kitty on it? Yes, these are words. Very good, I know words. This should have what I need. Let's go check it out. So before I go through with this, let's talk about, the effed update, because that's what this video is about, right? So thank you guys so much for all of the lovely comments you guys left. My self-esteem is built right back up, but I am still very lonely. So I'm going to use the Omnomnomicon.
I believe he's referencing the fact that
the Omnomnomicon available now. So the
he's
theme
kind of ugly.
The music videos this week
People were
is
like, "Your
rental
fursuit's creepy,"
fursuits,
and who he
you can
is.
catch Arrkay out on the streets of
He got a
Toronto,
facelift halfway through.
right over here.
Got new eyes.
Or if you haven't seen the playlist yet,
And
you
towards
have
the end,
no
I'll
idea
introduce
what I'm
everyone
talking
to
about. You can
his
watch it from the
his
beginning
successor,
down here.
which is just behind
This
me.
playlist is changing and evolving, and I got some new additions you should check out too. I noted them specifically down in the comments. So, when you're done looking at the music videos, we're gonna sum it up.
So I'll just pause it here quick to point out another playlist we tried to do where we had music videos all set up, and we did these like introductions to each grouping of music videos. So each grouping had like a theme. Like in this case, rentals. We had like an animated theme. And to record those, I went around the city of Toronto to our many beautiful murals and recorded quick little intros and outros there.
A friend here. So let me show you what we're gonna use to summon my friend. I have this donkey mask because it's festive and pretty. I have my favorite toy from the Youth Intergalactic Fighting Force, my favorite cartoon. And I have a video game controller because that's what friends do together. And I have the heart of Shio Gorath, who is the demigod I'm hoping will do me this little favor. And I have a VHS copy of Harvey. My grandfather starred in that as Dead Rabbit number 5. And I have this fursuit statuette, because obviously I want to summon a fursuiter. And I have my favorite fur brush. And of course in the middle, I have a fox, because of course I'm going to summon a fox, because I want this to be a furry party. Just for me. Anyway, fox friend. So, got my feathers and my fangs and my Omnomnomicon. Yeah.
Does drag on for a
I've
second.
already fucked this spell up. Ah, well, let's just keep going. Cthulhu, Gnaf, Gagan, Gnaf,
My favorite part is the fur on the brush. Like, instead of like a drop of blood or something.
Well, I guess all we can do now is wait for my friends to get
And yet
here.
another appearance
Wonder what
of
video game we're gonna play first. So
Harvey
we're going to be
Media
best friends, you're
on the
gonna be
channel.
okay friends.
So this pink fursuit was just a decommissioned fursuit that someone had donated, I guess. And we had peeled the face off and realized the face by itself was super creepy and gross.
Oh god. Yeah.
So we made Rusty's friend Tetanus.
I'm sticking to this caution tape. Okay.
Don't worry, in real life, a fursuiter could never move that fast.
I'm gonna have to deal with that later. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Maybe with enough subscribers, I can shoo this guy away.
What
check out
comes
the music
after
videos.
this?
Wait, did I leave Underbite?
More
down there?
lost episodes after
But
this.
if I left Underbite down there,
This is an era of lost
then
episodes.
who's holding the camera?
So we actually like just we have a lot of ideas that like are sort of in the hopper for a long time, and then we try to pick them, and then like there's like another phase where we start to develop them, and then some of them don't make it out of that, and then you know every subsequent stage like we tend to drop some of them, and that's just sort of natural to the process. We end up with, you know, like that's how we have stuff come out that we're actually pleased with the quality of, is that we end up shaking out the things that aren't.
Well, like, and of course the downside is that sometimes we don't post a video for 3 to 6 months.
And then we'll have like a whole cluster of them. Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. If everything works out right, we can release clusters of videos. But first, more lost episodes of Culturally Effed. We did two crossover episodes with the podcast Feral Attraction, which was a romance, love, advice, and sex podcast, with Metrico and another guy who was super canceled. So because of that, Metrico was like, hey, you should maybe take these videos down. It's pretty serious. So yeah, we had to take these videos down, which is a huge shame, because our episode on the Burn Furs was nominated for an Ursa Major Award. And Online Sexy Roleplay was our first video with animatics. And both of those are lost to time. Sort of. You can still watch the Burn Furs and How to Perceive Porn video. It's unlisted, but you can find the link on the Ursa Major Award website. So if you go to the Ursa Major Awards, you go to the previous years till the way to 2016, and you'll go down to the nominations. That link, I believe, still works, and you can still watch that video through that link, but it is not on our YouTube channel anymore. And I guess that means Online Sexy Roleplay for Furries from 2017 is just gone. Maybe up on our Patreon.
And it's a pity, but like at the same time, we wouldn't want that to be someone's first exposure to the channel and think that we're platforming people like that. And so it's kind of like that, like, you know, and that's ultimately I have been trying to be kind of sanguine about these things. Like there will always be things that do not get put front and center for reasons that, like, for no fault of the channels. and that's fine. Or like things that we put it out at the time, and then we didn't like the audio quality, stuff like that. Like those sorts of things happen. You know, even really professional channels. What's that one? In a Nutshell, Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah.
They take down videos if they are no longer happy with them, and they have like a production team. Like they're like a highly funded,
For sure.
you
Like,
know, professional outfit.
we do have a lot of crap that is still up online. The HP Lovecraft episode and these two episodes were like the rare exceptions stuff that was like, okay, actually, this is crossing a line of some kind. And so in 2017, we had an animation student from Australia named Butterscotch Otter make a new opening title for us. Speaking of canceled, Cord Kitty. But we don't have to get into that either. So yeah, this was the high concept new opening title where I wanted it to look like a furry convention that's populated with furries of antiquity, but also modern furries. So the panel, the dealer's den, the parade, and the rave. Troublingly, our animator had never been to a furry convention anymore. He lives in rural Australia, so he just had to make his best guess. I think he did okay. And yeah, we had this idea of using all of these like cutouts for our like lower third titles and having like fun facts like MTV used to have during their music videos.
Pop-up video.
Pop-up videos, but I just never really found like a permanent home for them.
Well, and they're really intensive too. Like that's the thing about like you would have to have like a constant stream of furry facts that pop up, or it isn't great if you only have 3.5 hours.
Yeah. So here we have our season 3 or 4. We kind of get loosey-goosey with the seasons from here on out. Season 3 and 4 thumbnails. We have Furry is Punk and Pop Furry, which talks about like why furry is like an alternative punk space, but also why furry is at risk of being for sale in the mall. And in fact, today in 2025, you can go to the mall, to your Hot Topic and your Spencer's, and buy furry merch. Like merch that is clearly designed by furries with the intention that furries will buy it. So that's fun and weird.
Well, and like it's one of those things like the commercialization of like the corporate sponsorship of Pride, where you're like, well, like, yeah, it's not 100% bad to have greater acceptance, but at the same time, we would rather be having people give money to indie furry creators for the merch they want to wear, and it's more fun. I don't think anyone's gonna be like, it's more fun to wear the same weird shirt that 10,000 other people have. I want to have a weird badge or something like. But it one of the things about life is that you have to a little bit embrace nuance and say like, okay, like obviously like we can't put the genie back in the bottle and say like no one outside of furry can talk about the fandom or do anything, and we in some ways wouldn't want to. Like the rise of like broader acceptance of furry has kind of aligned with the like death of the furry cringe video.
Yeah,
I've seen cringe is cringe now, and so I haven't seen that kind of video in a long time because people are just so like familiar with furry that they're like, oh, if you can get it at the mall, it must not be that scary. It's sort of the Ouija board effect. Like,
yeah,
once you point out that you can get a Ouija board made by Parker Brothers, people are like, oh, I guess it's probably not that scary then.
Yeah, so here we had a collab with Moms of Furries. They're great.
Oh my gosh.
We did a generic furry history timeline video and an episode about furry copyright. That was when DHgate was caught stealing furry photography and trying to sell like bootleg fursuits for $300. And so we did a whole episode just talking about like why you can't really copyright an article of clothing. You can copyright a dance, but you don't own the copyright of the recording to that dance, and weird stuff like that. And then we did a great episode on Black Sad. I believe my partner wrote that script as well. Fantastic preview. This was also a period when we were inserting our patrons into thumbnails. We did a great episode on Magic the Gathering, and I think that's when you come in with our Star Fox episode.
Yeah, I'm actually
So we're
I'm wearing the shirt for it.
Oh, that is so faded. You have put that in the dryer, haven't you?
I have. That just makes it more authentic.
No.
Don't
never put your nice shirts in the dryer. Oh, sorry. You have to do that again because I didn't have our videos up because of the.
It's okay.
I was showing off our thumbnails. So yeah, we do have furry merch. We did a line of merch that's not really represented in this presentation because merch was never really a big seller for us, but people really did like our fluff punk merch, and people like the Star Fox shirt does still catch people's eye. And I think you can still buy it through our TeePublic store that you can find on a link through YouTube, but it's never been our main focus. Has never been really selling merch.
Well, and like it's always weird to me when a YouTube channel like exists as a secondary thing for the merch.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's it like Boxy Fox or whatever you can like buy in Target, and I'm like that's fine, but like now you're like when I go over and hang out with my cousin, like her kid like is watching that YouTube channel, and they're every few minutes they have to promote their merch, and I'm just like, well, like cool, but that degrades the the value of what you're doing as a channel. Like now you have to stop and say buy our place that's in toys, and like I get it, like as a way to support yourself, I respect that, but at the same time I'm like I wouldn't want to run a channel that way.
Okay, next up we're gonna watch our cut down version of our appearance of mine and Underbite's appearance on Vice, where they came into town and we got conversations with them because we were still like all in on this YouTube thing and we needed the publicity and to get our name out there, get people interested in Culturally Eft and know that this is a YouTube channel about furries where we explore furry concepts. But talking to journalists is a bit tricky. They're very charismatic in person, but ultimately they did give us some strange direction, and we don't have any control over the edit. So here is some clips about Southern Ontario, and I may add my own commentary as we watch.
Back when I first started fursuiting, I brought it up with my grandma because I wanted her to help me sew, and I was like, "Hey, can you help me sew a bodysuit? I'm making like basically a mascot costume," and she freaked out.
Hopefully, we don't get a
thought I was
copyright
joining
for
this
this.
community of like weird people that would get together at meets and all just like get into a group fuck pile.
Hi, babe.
Hey, Mama. How you doing?
I'm good.
That's Sparks.
Good,
he
good.
is still an active community
pictures,
organizer in
never
Oshawa,
imagined
Ontario.
It would be a furry.
The furry population here was lackluster. There were not many furs. I thought, I'm going to try.
Oshawa,
I've seen
Ontario
YouTube
has a
videos
surprisingly
of
robust
furs
furry
going
scene.
bowling. Let's try to go to our
And
local
it's
bowling
probably mostly because of the efforts of Sparks Fox.
And like that can never be discounted. Like it's surprising how much like one or a handful of people who are really committed to having more events in their area really changes the event landscape.
Hands on. I'm bowling with what God gave me. I got a home run.
And here's our gross basement studio.
It's coming in here. Man, it's getting stuffy in here.
Sure is.
They had some strange direction and weird insistence of what we could and could not show them. I believe the episode we recorded with them there was our Gargoyles episode.
Feel furry has to be a
And
certain
because
thing,
we had
but
a
in my
bunch
experience,
of Gargoyles
furry
merch out, they're
is
like, we can't show any of
animation,
that.
It's comics. It's
Weird.
cosplay,
Disney property. Oh, there it is.
It's all of these other weird aspects, all sort of knotted into a big.
Like
messy
they were
ball.
insistent
It's just gotta have talking animals in
that
it.
we like do stuff with our fursuit heads on.
Oh, I thought it was just a sex thing.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a sex thing? You guys just have sex in those.
You know, all that writing,
Like,
all that writing you do with your
2000 significant
fursuit head
moment
on.
in furry history is when the CSI episode Fur and Loathing comes out and sort of paints the fandom as this like crazy.
Like I know
sex
this is
fetish
video
cult,
evidence
which
of me being
really,
guilty
really
of this, but I
diminishes
really
the
think Furry needs
reputation
to
of
move the
fandom,
fuck on
because
from
obviously CSI is a
CSI.
documentary.
Oh, people are
Well,
so strange.
like
They think
for
that
a long time, it
furries
was the only
are
landmark,
having sex with
right?
It was a
Like
big
in the
one.
dig deep enough.
yeah, like it was the only
but
it was the only
that's not
reference
the
point
case
you
for
had
every
in
one of
like
his
mass
friends that I've
media.
ever met.
Shoot, what was the other one? I made you look for years to find that other
I was
one.
expecting it to be a lot racier.
What was
than it
that?
is.
We found that one time.
Oh,
That
like
other-
recently, it was just like in
It's
this
just,
like
people
kids
dancing,
mystery show.
getting drunk.
Yeah.
Just a regular party
Oh,
scene
so this
with,
nightclub
some
scene,
fursuiters
so
and
they
other
Vice
weird
found us
furry
through
things
the
sprinkled
furry
up
event
on.
Howl,
So
and
I'm
but
gonna keep
Howl
here,
and
but
or
they
the
don't get
venue
into
didn't let them
anything
film there,
explicit.
so Vice threw their own furry rave in this like weird after dark bar, like after hours bar.
Where I can be me.
Yeah, so like this whole behind the scenes process of Vice Pursuits and Personas was like weirdly roundabout. Oh, this is a fun scene.
So
this
footage
was a
released
live
into us
reaction.
and features Hilda the Bambioid. So yeah, I haven't seen this before either.
This
Furry
was a live
archaeology.
reaction that someone had just sent us, or they
can't show
the
this
Prancing
and
Skill
suddenly say,
Tear
oh,
had
no,
just
it was
posted
all
this
very-
video
very
on their
well to
YouTube
do.
page
No, obviously there
of
was
Hilda,
some
of Robert
sexiness
Hill
added
as
to
with
it,
the
like,
Bambioid.
really early on.
Furry is drag, everybody.
You guys sure asked us a lot of questions.
Yeah, when people say like,
Some people
let's
may
bring the
disagree,
fandom
but
back
if
to
you
its
don't
roots,
adapt into
this would
character,
be
then
that.
you're doing it wrong.
Then you're just standing there with something on your face.
Yeah.
You're not a character.
Don't hesitate to show them
Alright,
that,
it's
because
disgusting skin.
if
A
you
lot
you
of
know
persona is based
a
off
a
of the individual's super ego.
sexy
Emphasizes,
a sexy
the
deer
aspects
in
of people's
like
personalities
Mhm.
and
bondage
aspects that you
gear.
want to build on and improve on and outwardly express more.
Or how little they care about.
Well, and there's also always in this kind of video journalism a degree of artificiality. I remember when my grandmother, her car went off the road into the ditch, and she got really mad because the video crew got there and spun the wheel so they could act like they just got there.
Yeah, so because it's journalism doesn't mean there's a lot of construction going on, a lot of staging, as it were, as we've seen with
Right.
the Vice clip. So here we can freely talk over this as we talk about your entry into Culturally Aft as we watch the speed paint of Underbite's Fox Wars print.
Okay, so
To tell us about your origin story, Tempo. This goes on for a minute. So
okay, so I was really going into a Star Fox craze, like when you rediscover some media that you were really into and you check out the things that have come out since you were really into it. That's what I was doing, where I had played the heck out of Star Fox 64, but I'd never had a GameCube, and so I'd never played Adventures, and so I had watched someone else stream Adventures and got really into it, and then I started writing like this really huge Star Fox fan fiction that like united all of the different like games as like a storyline canon, and it was really nerdy, and I was having a lot of fun, and I was like, in the midst of this, pitching. I ended up pitching like this kind of like theory that to Culturally Aft, because like Culturally Aft had been on my radar. Like I'd seen various things, I'd seen various videos at that point, and I was like, oh, okay, they're neat, and people kept showing them to me because it was kind of my jam. But I pitched this idea that we don't treat Star Fox the way we treat other fandoms within furry or even anything else. Like the idea that like all these like misconceptions that we have, like that we're just like, yeah, that's true. Like, that isn't like like the robot legs video. I remember the robot legs video came out and I was like, what a weird video. It just reinforced this like concept from like one promo photo set of them having the same puppet legs as what's it called? What's the puppet-based
yes,
show
I know what you're
where
talking
they're in
about, but I also
space?
can't remember the name.
Yeah, and so but it's and this is an entire like genre of like Thunderbirds. I was gonna say, I didn't want to say Thundercats and screw us up.
Yeah,
it was Thunderbirds.
I just googled it.
Thank you. And I ended up like. I always thought that was silly. Like that was the first one I noticed. I was like, that's really silly that we are hooked on this idea that like everyone in Star Fox except Crystal for some reason has robot legs, and like the fandom just like takes this as like canon. And yeah, canon is ambiguous, right? Like, go ahead.
She has different G diffusers.
Yeah, right. Like she doesn't. Her blood doesn't go into her legs, and so I'm just like. That's what got me thinking about my script, and it kind of was something I was stuck on, and so I had to pitch it to the channel.
Yeah, and we were already experienced taking on guest scripts, so it was pretty normal for us to get a pitch script like that.
I wasn't actually like thinking I would commit to a permanent gig at the time. I was just like, this is a funny idea I have, and this is a venue that would do it justice.
Immediately after the Star Fox one, you immediately came up with other ideas. Then as we saw in the thumbnails, you also started to talk to the voice cast of Agretzico. And you were like, I need an outlet for these interviews.
It's true. And like, I sometimes joke that I'm the only extrovert in the furry fandom. And so, like, I end up just reaching out to people for various projects. It's, that's how we got every guest for Tempo Talks, is I had either then specifically for that or for some previous project reached out to all of those people and was just like, oh, yeah, you're already on my radar. I already talked to you. And it's interesting to have furries ask me like, how do you get this stuff to happen for the channel? And I have to just tell them that like 3/4 of what I try to do fails. Like the most common response is radio silence, and they just never get back to me. And it's probably not.
The worst thing that happens is nothing. The second worst thing that happens is no.
Yeah.
Okay,
and either
we're gonna play a couple clips. We got the Fox alliteration clip, and then we're gonna play a clip from the Star Fox episode. And then we have another opportunity to talk when we upgraded our studios, and a couple more clips, and then we talk about our Ursa Major award.
Fortunate for us that this fiery furred friend furiously flounces his feast. This fuzzy fauna frolics forever in flowery fields, foliage of forests, and foggy fjords, featuring fundamental features, flaunting flawless fur. A fabulous and fair fiery facade, feral or frocked. For from fables of our forebears and forefathers, fabricate a fabulous family fable for future friends. Famous familiar facsimiles frequented for furries. Furry fans foresee facts on facilitating fox fornication. Forsake that fodder for a Freudian farce forthwith. The firmament of fame fizzles for a formidable fuss. Forsooth, fasten your facetious flabbergasting and facilitate a more fantastical fiasco, featuring a frenetic frenzy for fiendish fantasy fae. Unfurling, foreshadowing, fluent in frisky flailing. Don't fret on this frivolous filibuster. Fantastic, fluffy, feisty, ferocious furry foxes are culturally effed.
This graphic was a lot of fun. Wish we could use it. We could have used this graphic more.
Crystal's a buxom space vixen. Fox McCloud has robot legs. Falco Lombardi is a falcon.
I think
the
that's
Star
by
Fox team has
Rick
defeated
Griffin.
Andross numerous times. Wolf O'Donnell is an obsessive older guy in leather pants. Okay, last one is supported by canon. But which of these statements are not like the other?
Here was our first video test of the new studio where I gutted the rest of my basement and actually used the larger space for recording. And this is what I'm recording now.
Culture is filled with moments
And
of
here's some clips from
defiance,
Fluff Punk
of
and Pop
intentional
Furry.
contrasting and difference. These movements defy social norms. They dress strangely, often with garments that they make or modify on their own. They reject
Some
traditional
episodes
power
like
structures. They're often
Fluff Punk and
free-thinking
Pop
young
Furry,
people
I
with
think
neon
still
hair,
hold up excellently
sharing
today, and I still
indie
stand
and
by.
underground music. Their parents might think this counterculture weird or even dangerous. Certainly not something a stand-up citizen would take part in, but for those involved, it helps them define who they are and challenge the more stifling aspects of polite society. I'm talking, of course, about the furry fandom. Furry is sold out, man. Fandom's finally gone corporate, now it's all about the money. The worry that furry will become the next hot topic goth is culturally effed.
I liked that we paired these episodes because it was sort of like two sides of the same coin. Because on the one hand, furry
Super
is
indie,
this
super underground, really alternative. People have a lot of misconceptions about it. It's super punk. But on the other hand, it's like still very, it can be very family friendly and appeals to kids. When I was at Vancouver just last weekend, it was balanced beautifully. There was after dark content, and they had people checking IDs for those panels at events. But there was also like kids making masks and ice cream socials for the under 18 crowd during the day. And like these things don't need to be separate; they can exist together. They can be part of the same community because we, like a lot of furries, are old enough to have kids of their own, but also teenagers with enough autonomy and disposable income will also be trying to get to furry conventions on their own anyway, and we can't have them running around the 18 plus areas.
Well, and I think it's healthy the way that the fandom has developed around that, balancing it, where we're like, it's sort of a protocol that you just have sections blocked off as 18 plus, and everybody kind of knows.
A little off topic from where we're getting from Pop Furry and that, but I think that's certainly worth discussing and pointing out, especially at events in the future, whether they're 18 plus or all ages, or try to balance both. But I have seen it with my own eyes that we can do both. Let's talk about the Ursa Major Award. I have it here. If you look up, it's transparent, so I don't know how well it'll show up on camera. But in fact, here's one piece of furry ephemera, of culturally effed ephemera, that I can show off in person. And I need something dark to put behind it so that the audience can actually see it. We were nominated several times. There we go. We were nominated several times between Best Anthropomorphic Nonfiction Website and Magazine, and finally we won 2018's Best Magazine and have the plaque to prove it. This was pretty nifty to get. It came with a letter signed by Rod O'Reilly. I have that letter somewhere. But yeah, this was definitely a milestone for Culturally Effed. Was on our bucket list of things to accomplish. And we did. We got it. We won that year, even though it is just by popular vote and there was low voter turnout.
Well, like, I have also been nominated various times in the Ursa Majors, and I have won once and maybe twice, and like it's always really like intense competition. Like you and the categories change from year to year, and so like I have had times where I lost to World of Warcraft. That was one of mine.
At least once we were in competition with ourselves, and we split the vote between two different culturally effed videos. That in fact happened. I'll switch over and you can see Underbite's face. So the YouTube studio was a thing. Like we're really like between like fighting the algorithm and making playlists. Another thing YouTube tried to do was opening up recording studios in like every major city around the world. And all you needed to record in these studios was 1,000 subscribers. And we were already almost at 10,000 subscribers at this point. So we recorded several videos in the YouTube space. I think maybe all of them were written by Tempe, except for the one where we were, where we had For Science in. And we hung out with a few furs there. Arctic Skywolf, if you have ever seen his convention videos, was there with us at a few of their parties and mixers. And we recorded a lot of outros there as well. We did a session where we just recorded a bunch of intros and outros in Fursuit.
It was a good incubation technique. Like, I was a little surprised when they got rid of it.
Yeah, I think it just wasn't being used enough to justify the number of employees they needed, let alone the tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment they had on offer. The YouTube studio was in George Brown College, so it was also kind of doubled, like their facilities were probably semi-donated or a tax write-up of some kind with the college. But they hosted regular like mixer nights and really encouraged collaboration, and they had workshops and stuff. It was an interesting concept. But I think they've closed all but a few of the YouTube studios. That overall was not something they were interested in maintaining. And here is one such episode. They did one of their sets. They had these rotating sets that they would bring in, and one of them was this like cabin. So we did Furry is just one big TTRPG.
And all the foxes and vixens, merely players. They have their
I'm actually really proud of that
their
episode. I actually think that episode's really fun. Because it's not how we talk about Furry, but it's how Furry functions in the background, where it's just an ongoing game that we're always playing, and like we looked up the criteria for like what sociologists consider a game, and you know what are the requirements, and Furry met all the requirements. Like, you know, it's a space and time in which you have different objectives and rules than you do in normal society, and so on. And it was really fun, and I still think about that. I think that might be the video I think about the most. Because that one, every time I have a furry show up and say, like, you know, hey, wags, or, you know, whatever, nuzzles, whatever, like, I'm like, oh, okay, like, we are doing that. We are basically playing a TTRPG right now. And yeah, so like, it's a lot of fun. And I really enjoy it. Here's For Science, I see.
Yes, so this day was done at the YouTube studio, and it was the day after a huge blizzard, and we almost had to cancel. But thankfully, downtown was plowed in time, and Dr. Roberts and her partner, Malicious Beaver, who is, of course, now a furry after being exposed to Furry for so long, managed to come in time to record 17 Misconceptions, as well as like a sit-down interview on just like the pure white backdrop. And the idea was to recreate our most successful video, which was 17 Misconceptions about furries. And despite being basically the same content at a vastly higher production value, never caught up to its original incarnation.
Okay, and so like, as someone who posts stories and art and things on Fur Affinity and elsewhere, it's really, really hard to figure out any kind of systematic way to capture excitement. Like, it's almost always some sort of roll of the dice where, like, you know, you'll post it when no one else is posting, or you'll post it when everyone else is posting, or like it'll be shared by one person who's really into it, and or like it organically then, like, later that day someone else posts something else related and suddenly it's super popular. And like, it's very, very difficult to make things like go viral. I always find it really comical when people are like,
Like culturally,
Go ahead.
I feel like got started on the earlier side of things with furries and YouTube, because nowadays you can find all kinds of videos about exactly this by all sorts of creators, VTubers, shooters, everybody making videos about this. So let's let the clip play, and then after this, there's another clip from our themes episode.
And Underbite, here to bring you common misconceptions about furries and the furry fandom, updated for 2019. Welcome to Culturally Effed. I am your host, Arrkay. With me today
I dropped
is
our
Dr.
video
Sharon
because then we would be
Roberts
blocking
at
the faces of the clips.
FurScience.com. Government-funded furry science is culturally effed. Furry cons have themes, but why?
Still in the
Shouldn't
YouTube studio,
talking
but with a
animals be
backdrop by
enough of a
muralist
theme for
at Runt.
anyone? Furries, but they're in the 1980s, or the 1920s, the post-apocalyptic future, or the steampunk past, or any other time period, real or imagined, is culturally effed.
And of course, that episode was made because we were invited to be guests of honor of Camp Feral 2019. We also did the time to get into Fursuit and record like a lo-fi playlist background. Yeah, so that was another thing on our bucket list, as well as getting the Ursa Major Award to be GOH of some con. And we accomplished that.
We've actually, I think the year before that. No, the year before.
No,
the year before that.
Actually, I remember because it was my first or second feral.
Yeah.
GOH. I think it was even my first feral, which was in fact my very first furry convention. And that would have been back in like 2012.
Yeah, that sounds right.
2011. So I was still like a baby. I was a newbie to the fandom. Only really just I don't think I'd even picked my furry name yet at that point. I had like the start of a fursona. And I did get one of your books and it was signed, but then I traded it in a book swap. I'm sorry, Tempo.
That happens. That's okay.
Someone else
you can
got
always
to read
get
your
another
book.
one now.
Yeah.
And like honestly,
Even
I'd rather
more
have more people
autographs.
read it.
I want every page autographed. And that was a super long time ago, well before you were making videos for me.
That was actually how we met. We actually met briefly at Feral when I signed
Yeah,
the
I mean,
book
like
and
it's
whatever.
everyone meets everyone at Feral. It's such a small space.
Feral, like I really love that setting and all that for the convention. Like so many other conventions are. Yeah, like so many of the conventions are like in a liminal space where it's like you don't really care that what it is. It could be any convention center and it could be anywhere in the world. Whereas Feral can only really happen at somewhere else. Like when I've been to a Feral type convention in Brazil, it was radically different from Feral because it wasn't at the lakeside.
Yeah, Feral is unique. It's also one of the oldest running furry events in the world. I think second only to Anthrocon and Eurofurence. It is 26 or 7 years of continuous running. So the next clip, we're going to get into the Tempo talks. And I believe that clip is one of our longer ones. But it's worth it because there's a sort of a punchline at the end.
Okay.
And like I said earlier, we don't really have a time limit, so we're just going to watch the whole thing.
Culturally Effed is the top pop culture analysis channel for talking animals. In addition to our video essays, we're launching an interview series with voice actors, animators, game designers, and other creators, all with the intent of examining the role of furry in society. I'm Tempo, and I'll be taking you on this journey, so slap your paw on that subscribe button and stay tuned.
Hey guys, Jameson Boaz here. I'm the voice of Death Metal Redsco, and I just wanted to talk to you for a moment about how to sing death metal safely. Can't have you hurting yourself.
We're sort of living in a kind of golden age for what people used to. Jameson is the nicest man.
Like the anime where
like
characters get development.
Oh my gosh.
And like
he's just the
not
sweetest.
Just about yelling and punching.
Yeah.
Like there can still be yelling and punching,
but now you've worked on Agretsuko and Little Witch Academia, both of which have mostly female casts, and
So
are as
this
much
was
about
Culturally
relationships
F's big
between
pivot
characters as
towards
they are
like
about the action.
podcast and alternative media.
And those are the popular anime now.
Tell me
Those are
again
the
what
ones
inspired
that
you
pop
just to
up
do
on Netflix
interviews.
and Crunchyroll. So, what do you think well, about that? there are age tons that you of have ushered there were all these podcasts where furries would get together and talk to one another.
like, I'm
but
all for,
half of
like,
what we
female
talk about
driven
in the
stories,
fandom
you know, a plethora of
is
female
content
characters, obviously.
created
Plus, the main
outside
characters
of the
are
fandom
very
and sort of
important
on the
and
periphery
still
to it that is made by
no,
a
I think
larger outfit, right? Like,
you know,
so
when we
Disney
start
and
telling stories,
Sanrio and
they're
whoever else.
much more
And
relatable, and not just a form
we
of
really get into
escapism.
this
There's nothing
content.
wrong with
Like, we
escapism. There's
love
nothing wrong
BoJack,
with
we
wanting to
love
watch
Star
fights
Fox. And so
fantasy and
I was
all
just
of
like,
that.
well,
That's great. And there is
let's
that, you know, in Little Witch,
just
and
talk to the people
that's,
who are
that is
involved in
great,
it,
and that has a
especially since
place
a
in
lot
it,
of them
but,
are like
you know, when we can start to see
not
ourselves in
really
these characters and
getting swarmed by fans, like, because they're not movie stars, they're voice actors and like producers and stuff like that. Like, they're not, and they're musicians. Like, they're not the people who are, you know, getting, you know, the cheering crowds whenever they show up at a convention. And one thing I'm really proud of that we did as a channel was get the Agretsuko main cast, the GOH spots, and then like a couple. They ended up having multiple GOH spots, and then we arranged for them to have tails and ears. That was absolutely one of my favorites because we got to do something that they were really into, and they were really like. Yeah. And so that's, you know, like, especially
I would definitely take credit for Ben Diskin, especially becoming a fandom darling, because our Tempo Talk with him like smashed past 30,000 views.
That's not my experience.
I think that's big enough to take credit for.
As a cis white male, I think so. I have not run into that. I am
like, here you are in this clip talking with Caitlin Galt about like feminism and fandom.
And so I just don't run into some of these things. But to me, watching shows that have more than just, you know, the team has the girl, like the shows where like multiple female characters interact with one another, and like they're all different and they're all representing different ways of operating as a woman in society. Those give me more, like, they may allow me to better interact with female friends. Like, I just find that to be useful, and so that's why I really jumped on this Agretsuko thing when it came up. You know, I was watching the shorts, I'm like, this is amazing. Like, where else am I gonna see like 5 or 6 female characters interact about this stuff? While we're still talking about your background, before we get completely distracted with the cultural implications of your work, since this is a furry channel, what cartoons with talking animals did you watch growing up? Like, what ones?
Yeah, so. After a very deep conversation about feminism and fandom, we of course have to ask, what are your favorite talking animal cartoons? So yeah, that's Tempo Talks. Anything else on Tempo Talks before we move on to Fursuit Future and History?
So we've kind of slowed down on doing, we've largely replaced Tempo Talks, for the moment at least, with Uplift, because I don't need to schedule myself. And that was always the limiting factor. Like, we always were like scrambling to find like this, like, people to be on the show, and I had several cartoon voice actors I was communicating with, and like video game voice actors I wanted on the show, and they were just busy. Like, they had stuff to do, and I just never could get them to hop on a call with me for like a couple hours, which I then would edit down over the course of like 10 hours and then have a Tempo Talk. And so that's sort of where we lean into things like Uplift. And so we'll get into that in a little bit.
But before we do, let's talk about Fursuit Future and Fursuit History. There'll also be some clips that follow this as well. Just kind of hide our webcams for a second so we could admire all of these thumbnails. Most of them were made by Underbite, but this was also when he departed from the channel, so I had to take over a lot of the graphic design. but yeah, Fursuit history, like the first few episodes of Culturally Apt, was an exploration of costumes from prehistory to modern day, including the skin parts of the theater and the stage in the turn of the century, of mascots in sports stadiums, of course, cosplay, our most direct ancestor to fursuiting, and then like 2 or 3 episodes just about making fursuits, performing in fursuits, and of course, what happens to fursuits after they are retired. And I had asked Tempo to make a script about the future of fursuiting, and I got back this rather bonkers but well researched theoretical sci-fi kind of exploration of transhumanist ideas and cybernetics and biohacking. I'll turn our videos back on. But that was also way too much just for one video, and I'm like, no, this is also outside of the realm of Fursuit history. This is now its own series, so that spun off to kind of be a sequel series of Fursuit history called Fursuit Futures. Any other memories or thoughts on history and future before we watch the clips?
So, my partner, Arrkay, is actually consulting on this because she's an anthropologist, and so we totally dragged her in. And that made me really happy. And because we got to kind of showcase like her knowledge and background, and like talked about like that it's worth talking about this sort of continuity from the ancient past and to the modern day. And as far as Fursuit Future, like we did have like an end cap where we talked about like emerging technologies in the furry fandom, but like the sky is kind of the limit. Like
Sure.
which was sort of the the moonshot approach that I took to
Like we were
Furry
talking, like
Futures.
when we finished Fursuit making, it was like 3D printing was like the cutting edge, and now that's somewhat standard and par for the course with fursuit making. And you really took it to the next level with mechs, with bio furs, with cybernetics, and then of course it culminated in a combination of all of these concepts with the transhuman fursuit.
And we actually have because we put those out, we got in contact with the Freedom of Form Foundation, which is like a furry nonprofit that funds research that is on its face like to make you into a furry, but has the more broad implication of being able to like help you if you're in a car accident and need like reconstructive surgery, because the same technologies would apply. And so it's really interesting to see furries do this like thing that is mostly like really it's just like biohacking. It's like getting a tattoo.
Yeah.
It's like getting a piercing. Like it doesn't really do anything practical, but it has these other knock-on effects that are really, really practical.
For sure. I had a great conversation with this at my last convention last weekend at Vancouver with this guy who had like the robot kind of style of fursuit. And I was asking him, like, tell me about your persona. And he was like, oh, well, I have this like 3-page backstory. It's all like very transhumanism. And it's kind of like about mechs and biohacking. And I was like, that's all awesome. But what I couldn't think of is like, what we need a cool word for that. And we don't have to come up with this during the stream, obviously, but I just want to put it out in the universe, put it in your little brain Tempo. We need buzzword for those mech kind of plasticky fursuits in the same way that we have like protogens describe that kind of fursuit with like the robot face and some mechanical parts. That's like a subgenre of but that's its own thing. We can't apply protogen to the Fursuit Future Tech image we have there, or that like kind of mech one we see in the corner of Cybernetic Fursuit's thumbnail. We need like a mech fursuit buzzword for those furries to adopt.
Because they kind of look like the Super Sentai characters, some of them.
Yeah, they look really rad. But they need like a unifying title to put behind them, and I don't know what that title is.
If the chat wants to contribute,
chat, please pitch your ideas for what we should call our robo fursuiters, because I'm seeing more and more of them, and they are kind of like their own subgenre of fursuit, kind of like protogen, but protogen is in that like Venn diagram between them. Just food for thought. But yeah, fursuit history and fursuit future were such a pleasure to make. I'm really especially proud of the 1,000 year fursuit episode, talking about how we're basically just wearing and shedding microplastics, and that should maybe be an environmental concern to a community who is concerned about the environment.
Well, and there are solutions. Like you could make it out of polylactic acid, and it would be biodegradable.
Yeah.
You can do things
to be commercially available.
Yeah.
We're not quite there yet, but we are tiptoeing our way towards a more sustainable fandom.
Vote with your dollars.
Yeah, let's see if we can't get to those clips now. We'll watch a clip from Fursuit history, and then we'll do a COVID beard jump scare with Fursuit Future, because I recorded Fursuit Futures during COVID when I had like a good extra inch of beard hair on my face. We'll start with the Westfield trailer. So this is the side by side. Let me turn the volume way down. So obviously it's inspired by Westworld's opening title of season 1. And because I had the video clip there, this kept getting flagged for copyright, but you can watch this unlisted if you watch just the straight trailer. There's a link to it in the description. And it's just a side-by-side to show the inspiration and how I tried to match, like, frame for frame, the concepts of the trailer, but make it fursuits and silly. Sorry, Tempo, if you're saying something, I can't hear you.
I'm always amazed by the technology that people have to employ to manipulate faux fur, because it's such a pain in the butt. Like the big roller sewer. There was a person in the fandom for a while who was using a wig making machine to make their own faux fur.
It's so much work. But I bet their fur was really gorgeous.
Yeah, like I don't remember who it was, but they were taking like wetsuits, like diving wetsuits, and running them through a wig making machine and then trimming them down.
So much work.
Our last installment explored the professional costumers in the greater context of the stage, cinema, and stadium, and in this week's episode of Fursuiting a History, we'll kick back for a little relaxation and celebration. We're going to learn how nerdy gatherings of science fiction and anime fans would evolve.
It's a jazz cover of a Zelda song in the background.
And how colorful, personalized creations became the mascots for an entire artistic movement
Village, I think.
born out of these growing fan communities.
Yeah, I got permission from a YouTube
Arrkay,
jazz
and
musician for a bunch of his covers.
Part 5, Cosplay and Masquerade. Can a fursuit
There's the
make
COVID
you
beard.
live forever? What if your fursuit could allow you to cheat death itself? What about cyborg fursuits? Or genetic manipulation?
Grew it specifically for the mad scientist vibe.
No, I grew it because it was COVID times and we didn't have to leave the house. But I definitely wanted to capture that mad scientist vibe that the script was kind of giving me.
Oh yeah,
those Dr. Frankenfurter gloves.
Where did you find like neon, like Pepto-Bismol
It's a
pink
dollar
gloves?
store. I had done a full Dr. Frankenfurter like Halloween outfit one year, and I had them for that.
Once you can turn a stock human into a fly-capable anthro raven, keeping your default organs in order is a breeze. Curious
That
about
great
how
YouTube
far
YouTube
fursuit
cadence to my
science could
voice.
take us? Tune in right here on Culturally Apt.
It's like how in the turn of the century radio speak, where we had to adapt.
Definitely.
We had to, make it kind of nasally because the deep sounds wouldn't transmit.
Okay, we're honing in on modern culturally apt. Because we did base take most of last year off.
Oh, this was also when we added the Roku channel. We're famous. We're on Roku. I sometimes turn
That's
it on in
right.
electronic stores.
Oh, good. Though I believe our Roku is probably woefully out of date. I don't know if our Roku channel has any of our most recent uploads. The company that was running that for us, they kind of went dark. I should poke to see if they are still accepting submissions for us on our behalf, or if there's a way we can just take over it ourselves. But yeah, any standout thumbnails here that you wish to talk about that you remember fondly?
People really, really liked the My Little Pony, Lion King, and Bluey thumbnails. Like I think that it's just really good graphic design because like there's this temptation to have like a bunch of stuff going in your thumbnail, but then it's the size of a postage stamp or smaller.
Yeah.
When people view it, but I actually really liked the Bluey one. The Bluey one, we had an appearance by Moms of Furries, and like we had that they didn't actually neither of them had watched Bluey before, and so we gave them like a sample pack of good episodes, and it was just really sweet and like really fun and like kind of acknowledging that like the furries, like there are furries who have kids, like there are furries who, you know, are old enough to have kids, even though we think of this as a really juvenile fandom sometimes. We're like, oh yeah, everyone's like 14.
Yeah, we tend to, furries generally average to be in their early 20s, and they kind of grow out of it, and we have this turnover of fandom participants that are younger, but the fandom itself is like at least 50 years old. Like,
well, and that's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you say this is a space only for 20-somethings, then the people who age out of it, the people who get older than that will age out of it, usually. And so, because they'll feel like they don't belong. But if you say stuff like, hey, look, like, these are people who are raising their kids and they're still doing furry events, and, you know, this is what that can look like. I really like that one.
I talk about this a little in my latest video on with Furry is Queer, and I talk about it in my panel lecture, A Queerer Furry History, which will be next week in person at Fernal Equinox, and it will be online eventually, probably just after Fernal Equinox, where I talk about how a lot of people find the fandom in that time period of their lives, in their late teens, early 20s, when they're looking for community and they're looking for queer spaces. And a lot of the elders in furry are queer, and they've stuck around to maintain this queer safe space, making it more inviting for more queer people. And then you kind of get that snowball effect of more and more queer people in the fandom, hence why there are so many queer furries. But that's also why people kind of leave, because they do get what they need from furry, and then they don't need it as much anymore. They don't need to go to the cons every year. They don't need to go to every con, because they found their people, and and furry was still an instrumental part in finding their people.
And it's not a binary. A lot of people just scale back. Like even I have scaled back from my height of going to multiple conventions a year, because it's just so intensive. Like it's so much of my free time that I would and money that I would devote to going to multiple conventions a year. And I've sometimes found myself in the position of I can either get this project out on time and have people appreciate that, or I can go to a convention, and like sometimes I just pick the project because I'd rather have it happen. I also live in the middle of nowhere, so like there are very few furry events like near me. Like my local con is probably on the Winnipeg scene, like Wild Prairie Fur Con and things like that, and that's like I want to say 8 hours away. Like it's pretty far, and so by car, and so it's tough to justify those. Another one that kind of hits the same note is the My Little Pony Lion King one, because there are these waves within furry where you can kind of identify the wave you rode in on.
Right. Yeah, like the Zootopia wave, the Star Fox wave. And if you go really far back, there's just like a comic book wave. There's the furry muck wave.
And coming up next, the Belfort and Lupin wave.
Yeah, of course. We're going to have a lot of Belfort and Lupin stuff. This is also the time period of Culturally Effed where things do get into a lot of queer analysis. Our videos are hiding it, but the dinosaur one in the top, we talk about queer themes in that. We talk about the queer themes and history of Moomin Troll, of She-Ra. We talk about the politics of furry and how gay that is, and how that becomes completely unavoidable. We did a queer reading of Harvey. It was one of my favorite episodes that I've ever made. Yeah, so I've also been taking this time in these past few years to try to inject more queer theory and especially queer history into our videos, because I have that consciousness that there are lots of young furries and a lot of them are queer, and they need that context and they need it delivered in a way that they'll relate to. And the way our community relates to things is through talking animals. It's through the anthropomorphic animals we find in media.
Well, and you have to make it easy. Like, you have to make it approachable, because, yeah, like, someone could go to the library and crack open a book on, like, queer history or civil rights or something, and that's fine, and people do that, but way more people will totally, like...
watch an 8-minute video on how a lesbian or a bisexual, pansexual, queer woman in the 40s made a little troll to fight fascists.
Yeah.
Or how we can interpret a play/movie from the 50s to be a queer reading, and how queer people were treated in the medical system before it was decriminalized. Because all that context is lost. They don't teach that stuff in school.
Well, and it's not something that gets talked about in, like, you know, like, mainstream depictions of it, because if you look at, like, commercialized, kind of sanitized versions of queerness, it's like, yay, dancing in a rainbow flag stuff, and that's cool, that is part of it. But at the same time, there's also this, like, why don't people want, you know, cops at Pride? Well, because there's this whole history,
this historical context that you were never taught.
And if you're just showing up, we can't blame you for not knowing, and so we have to provide that. And I'm really proud of that work.
And of course, me too. I love doing it. I'm going to keep doing it for the next season of Culturally Effed. I'm going to keep injecting more queer theory and queer history, because it needs to get out there to more people, and more than ever. But before that, we did something really fun. We're going to show a clip of this first. It is the 3-hour Fursuit challenge, our very first convention back from COVID, so everyone's masked up. But I ran the Great Fursuit Makeoff at Vernal Equinox, where I had put out a call to all of our local fursuit makers for their bags and bags of scrapped fur. And the challenge was, can furries, more or less randomly paired together, assemble a fursuit in 3 hours using only hot glue and scraps? So we're going to watch a little clip from that, and then I believe we're going to just do a multi-episode clip show, a clip from Harvey Speaks, and a clip from Circles. And then we get to talk about Uplift.
Fursuits. Fuzzy animal costumes enjoyed by the furry fandom.
I'm just going to hide our video, but feel free to add any commentary.
But here at Vernal Equinox 2022, we're challenging 4 teams to make a fursuit in under 3 hours.
So when I first went to a furry
convention, only allowed to use bits
I went
of
to either MFF or Anthrocon, and it was in like 2008, and there wasn't really any footage that I'd ever been exposed to for what a furry convention looked like, and so I walked in completely unprepared for the just like visual stimulation of it, like for just like what it would be like, which was really interesting. Like I did not realize the degree to which, like, not only would fursuiters be there, you know, So like giant stuffed animals going around and toy
The rules for the
like
makeoff
sculptures
are quite
going
simple.
around.
Fursuits
But also
must be
just
made
like
from scratch.
the
They must only use materials
like
provided. Tools
sheer volume
must
of
be
open
down at the end of the
queerness
countdown,
was
and
really
fursuits
interesting to
must
me
be
as
on
someone
their
who's
model.
from the
Contestants
middle of
must
nowhere,
stay safe
and
around the hot glue or
that
sharp
was really
objects.
interesting, and
And
it took me a
here
little
the
while to
convention's code of
like
conduct.
recover because
The
I was
minimum
kind of
required
like
is one fursuit head and
I think
one
I think I
accessory,
was
like
a little
paws or
stunned
tail.
the whole time, but it was in a positive
Each
way.
team gets to start off with a fresh roll
I
of duct
actually
tape, clear tape,
like
painter's
I
coveralls,
just really
glue sticks,
enjoy
sewing needles,
that we
and
can
thread.
have that
They are allowed to
be
bring
like
their own
a place to be different in a
Team Color
positive
Carnage
sense.
even brought
Like you
a
can be
sewing
weird. Like in the
which
furry
may
fandom,
give
if
them a
in the furry fandom, if you say someone's weird, like yeah, he's a weird
adorable
guy.
scorpion
Like
lesbian
it's kind of like
teaching you when
fun
to let go of
most
an
of the
abusive
time.
relationship with a cat
Whereas,
girl is culturally
yeah, right. Like
incorrect.
obviously there are negative examples, but like if you're saying at work, like that guy's really weird, like that you would almost certainly, if you're talking about a variance from the norm, be like it's negative.
Making a video about My Little Pony,
But yeah,
10
like I just like it.
years too late is culturally effed. A century-old bunny tricking modern
So,
viewers into
what
nostalgia
are
is
these?
Oh, these
that
are just
we're
clip
seeing?
shows of the
anti-fascist
thumbnails.
marshmallow hippo
Okay.
teaching kids about
These were all
queerness
recorded over
is culturally
COVID, so my beard is varying lengths. And here's my favorite episode ever. Harvey Speaks.
I'd like you to meet Harvey.
With a close second being Circles.
Hello,
The
my
Circles
name is Harvey.
personal reflection.
I was the subject of a 1944 play.
This is
in
the voice of
1950
Draylen
film
Dragon
Share My
Fox.
Name.
And the
I'm a
last
Puka.
video
I
appearance
was
of
Element
Rusty
2000's
Shacklefur
lover.
1.0.
A puka.
If you can even call
Is
it a
that
video
something new?
appearance, because he's
P-
obviously
O
in
O
silhouette.
K A. Puka.
A puka is mostly
I
known
think
to
also
humans
our only
only
video
in
shot in
We're a
Letterbox.
fairy tale race of invisible shapeshifters from northwestern Europe.
Thus
We're known
far.
for getting into trouble and giving out advice.
Letterbox is going to make
The
a comeback
Shakespeare
because it
character
fits better on a
Puck
vertical
from
screen.
Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yeah, like I'm glad that
by
I would be more in favor of us doing Letterbox than true vertical, like vertical 1080p,
A benign.
because vertical 1080p is miserable to watch on a computer monitor.
Yeah.
Rum pots.
I'm used to not being seen. It's in our nature to stay invisible to anyone we don't trust, and puka don't find humans to be very trustworthy. It's a defense mechanism. Humans tend to be violent towards things they don't understand.
Harvey was a delightful
Elwood
rewatch. I'd
had a
recommend
way
everyone
of
watch
keeping
Harvey.
people from seeing his true self too.
My beloved
It's
otter brought me
dangerous for
chocolate-covered
people
potato
like
chips
him.
during the stream because she loves me.
We also have powers over time and space. I usually only do this to make parties last longer. If you ever find yourself surrounded
I
by
actually
friends
really
losing
like
track of time,
that we do
but
things like
it
the
never
Harvey
quite
Speaks
gets to be too late to go home.
like video
Maybe at a
because
party or a bar.
I can't think of another venue.
Presence of a puka.
Like I can't think of
Yeah.
another venue where we would ever do that. Like,
The puka.
is cable access television gonna let you do that at 3 in the morning? Maybe, but like, where else would you do it? And it's like prime time in
No,
the
even despite all of my edits and changes, we still got a copyright strike from Universal for using all of this footage.
And now I'd like both of you to meet a very dear friend of
Which
mine.
is very annoying because no clip from the movie is more than like 10 seconds, but they still
Even
clip
though
it.
he knew most people couldn't see me, he was always fussing with.
And
my
I would
tie,
argue this
jacket,
is like
collar.
transformative work that would be under fair
Just
use.
in case I felt safe enough to
But I'm not a
show
lawyer.
I very much doubt that a human made that choice. I think that an algorithm looked at that and was like, that contains this.
He was
and
so bright and happy.
whatever. But on the positive side, I really do enjoy this kind of commentary and this kind of transformation because like it's making the subtext text.
Yeah.
You know, for those of you who don't know, do you want to give away the game? Like what the text of this is? Like it is queer, it is gay. Like that was the joke in Harvey.
Oh, I think so, but like it was if you just read it on its own and you're a clueless heterosexual, you might not pick up on it. But knowing what I know about gay history and like Harvey and Elwood's relationship, like it was just so obvious to me. that this was a gay relationship that was invisible to society. Anyway, go watch the video. It's all there. The other gay awakening I had last year was rereading Circles.
Like Arthur now, an artist who
and for the
lives in the
kids,
basement
that
of the
is called
house,
Caramel
creating
Dancing,
vivid portraits
and that
of
was a
his
meme
friends,
dance they did back
though
in the
my
2010s and
chosen
early
route to this
2000s.
video.
One of the first meme dances of the internet.
It's 2008 and issue 9 of Circles.
And the Circles
is
video
being
was
written,
also
but the
this
artist K9
YouTube
can't
trend
commit
called
to creating
authenticity.
the artwork, so they push
So
ahead
no
to
makeup,
publish the rest
just
of
my
the story
greasy,
as a
sweaty
novel
hair
with
and
the
whatever I
occasional
was wearing.
It's 2023.
Don't ask me about
I'm
my outfit at
rereading
Feral.
Circles more slowly.
Muy auténtica.
I'm taken aback how I've been in the role of most of the characters throughout my life. I found and bought the complete collection of Circles at Anthropology.
Other than our...
That's actually how he dresses when he's not on camera.
I found it so
I mean,
relatable
more
how
or
the
less.
authors also found themselves invited here to Camp Feral.
So this was at Camp Feral at Northern Campfire, which is a big circle. It's thematic. And the camp theme that year was business casual, because of course you want to dress business casual when you're going into the forest. Thank you, dog. Oh, she's barking out the window. Okay, I'm going to let this play, and I'm going to go shut my dog up.
Going to more cons, their experience creating Circles reminded me of my own experience here on YouTube. Their casual mentions of Glad Day Bookstore, which I was at the other day. Now, I'm Douglas, worrying over my partner's anxieties, working on creating hearth and home for my friends.
She's barking out the window like she's not supposed to be. Yeah, for the Circles video, I got the music that inspired the titles of all of the Circles chapters, and I fed it through one of those websites that isolates each track for you. So I had like the drum track, the bass track, the miscellaneous instrumentals and the vocals, and I like remixed that into the whole video, and it works to great effect. I think the audio in that video is so fun. And it all comes together at the end with like all 4 elements coming back together. And we didn't get a copyright strike.
Transformative media.
The season's spinning round again. The years keep rolling by.
It's 2043. This is how we all dress now.
It's also fun
I
use
am
of a
now
projector
Polly,
in the studio.
teaching the young queers the ways of our past.
I like the Circles video because it acknowledges that like this fandom we think of as very much like existing in the moment, and like it's just a party you're going to. It's like a video, a funny TikTok that came out. It's a video game that we're all talking about right now. Like we're all excited about this TV show right now. Exists in the long term, much like, you know, the queer community exists in the long term, whether or not you were looking at it, whether or not you were too young for part of it, or now you're not really plugged in.
Yeah, and like what Circles really helps emphasize to me thematically anyway is that like it's ultimately we're part of a community, and the community is made of people and relationships. And that goes well beyond just like parties and conventions and trading artwork. That's supporting each other and being there for each other through thick and thin, right? Again, watch the video for that, because now we have to talk about dogs in space.
We do. So, Uplift started because I was procrastinating writing another book. And I actually, in like 2012, wrote like the first thing for this, because I was working with the Choose Co, which is the Choose Your Own Adventure company. And they had reopened for submissions for the first time in decades. And so I was working with them to make an interactive fiction for the Choose Your Own Adventure line. And like I said, 3/4 of the things that I do don't happen. And so the founder died and they canceled the line. And but that meant I had this property sitting around. And so I kind of was brainstorming with friends about it, and it was like kind of just on the back burner. And then I hit upon this idea that like people always like to present sci-fi in particular as being a dystopia, even if it's not meant to be. So like, you know, isn't it like, oh, like there was like a video, I think it was like Reddit or Media or some, like, yeah, like the it's Star Trek. Star Trek's, actually bad because you'll be like some person on the crew who just wants to study comets, and then you have to fight the Borg all the time. It's actually terrible. And like I was like, man, how would I, as like a person creating content, like telling a story, convince you, right? Get past the built-in negative bias that we all have, and say like, this is actually a utopia. And I hit upon this idea, like, if the least powerful members of your society think that it's a utopia, then they're right. Because there's this quote of, like, you should judge a society by how it treats its most vulnerable. Like, it's old, it's infirm, it's young, it's prisoners. And in this case, I was like, okay, well, who is the least powerful in this society? And it's probably the talking dogs, because like they don't have thumbs, and they don't have, like, they're smart. Like, they're not stupid per se in Uplift, but they're also
they
so
kind of
neurologically different.
They have the dog. I kind of describe them as like the dogs from Up.
Yeah.
Where they all can talk, and they have the same range of emotions as we do, but they also still do dogisms. They still get distracted by the squirrel or the thrown object, or they're very food motivated.
Well, and go ahead.
No, I'm pretty much done.
So, and like, how I like to think about it is like, it is science fiction of neurodiversity in a way, because like, you're thinking about how, like, what would be even more like beyond the spectrum of like neurodiversity within the human population. Like, what if you had these other creatures who were so different neurologically that they don't even consider things the same, having the same purpose that you do, like, even though they know about them. So like, the idea of, the most important thing for the dog to tell you about the spaceship is like an anecdote about like the time that cinnamon rolls got stuck to the elevator shaft because there's no gravity.
Yeah,
right. Like,
how you got in trouble for peeing on the wrong thing.
Yeah, right. Then you peed on the wrong thing, and it shorted out something important, and that was bad. So we have to be careful not to do that.
Yeah.
And like, because like as humans, we organize data differently. Like, we organize data in a really like logical to us way. Like, we're like, okay, like, I'm gonna give you like a hierarchy, and we're all trained to do this. And you see that you have this training, and that it doesn't have to strictly be this way when you look at how other cultures present ideas, because like, we present all of our YouTube videos, all of our video essay ones, in the format of the 5-paragraph essay, where we're like, okay, here's an intro and an outro, and there are 3 main points, and go. And sometimes there are more than 3 points, but still it's the same structure. And you have a thesis statement, and you have like a closing argument and a call to action and whatever. And to us in the West, that's like, in the modern West, that's how you explain these things. But if you go to other cultures, like when I talk to like furries from Asian countries, they sometimes will be like, well, yeah, like, why would you explain it like that? Like, why wouldn't you make it like the 8-legged essay? And because that's traditionally how you would explain this sort of material. Uplift, I had someone else say that it was, it was one of the Chinese furries read my Iron Claw book, which was a Dungeons and Dragons type monster manual. It's bestiary. And he was like, it's an ancient Chinese medicine book. That's what this is. And I'm like, sure. And he, can you tell me more? And he's like, oh, well, it's different. And so like, if that's the broad range that we have within human, experience for how we talk about things, then dogs or dolphins or other species would be even more removed from that, which is why I have this attitude when writing and narrating Uplift, that the dogs will sometimes like just go off and do something and explain like a story, or like have an entire video where they explain something else to you, where they're like, this is terribly important, or they'll categorize something in a way that doesn't make sense to us. Like, the 2 of the videos are like things bigger than dogs and things smaller than dogs.
Yeah.
And like, that's not a way that as humans we would really think to explain it usually. We'd be like, why would I explain? I'm going to explain things based on, like, other kinds of categorizations. And so that's part of what makes me happy about the series. I think that's fun.
We stopped doing visuals for now just because it was just a lot of work, but I did enjoy the direction of what if a dog used editing software.
Oh man.
And just like the super generic copy pasted, like really low effort graphics that we used. Though I adopted on this the Voyager graphic with the dog and dolphin because I thought that's a good graphic to land on.
So they usually eat
but yeah, just
in a
a
chair.
great use of
Mostly
stock
humans
footage.
Can eat the same food as dogs.
Well, and like
That is
the
part of why we
theory
domesticate
behind that,
them.
like behind the
It means
scenes
we
on
can
why
share.
Uplift is like that is because
Dolphins mostly eat fish
the
and
dogs
squids. Dolphins
don't
do not
understand the
usually
con like they are just
Sometimes
like,
they like what
and then
we
we
cook.
did it and it's
If you make
done.
a
Here you
pancake
go.
with fish
Like
and
I
float it on the
was supposed to do
ocean, a
this,
dolphin might eat
and
that pancake.
Yeah, and just occasionally adding sci-fi bits to their faces and stuff.
We talked about some
That's their
things that
Neuralink or
probably
whatever.
happen in a day. Lots more things can happen though. Some things
well, and
will
like
happen that have
the
never happened
idea of
before.
polish,
If
like
you
that
have
it needs to
questions
you
about
need to get an
something that
A
might
is a
happen,
very human
now is a good
behavior.
time to ask a dog about that thing.
Like the dogs would just do this and then they're like, we're done. Let's go play.
So during the pandemic, in order for me to stay in touch with friends and family, we streamed B movies over Discord. And I was also working on Rattles, the fursuit, who's just behind me, and I'll bring him forward to the camera. But for right now, I closed our videos on the stream just to show off thumbnails. So I was like, how can I combine these ideas? How can I use my spooky fursuit and talk about creature feature B movies on my YouTube channel? And of course, that resulted in the Bone Zone. So Bone Zone was just movie reviews. We started with Hell Comes to Frogtown, Poltergeist, Thanksgiving, Anonymous Rex, and it pivoted to shorts, but this was also broadcast on North Dakota Public Access Television. It's like a 20-minute special or whatever. It's just our longer reviews all stitched together.
I showed them so much of our content, and this was what they stopped on, and we're like, no, this one. We want this one. Give us an hour's worth of this.
I don't even know where to begin filling in 30 minutes with Rattles in the Bone Zone, let alone an hour. And we'd get just as many views on our 60-second short views, which are vertical like this one.
2020's indie splatter film, Furry Nights.
This one got censored on TikTok. I think it was too sexy.
Plot, but with furries hunting down normies who are just trying to film their amateur porn video in the forest. The furries wear grotesque drugstore masks and make incredibly annoying chittering noises. Little to no research was done on furry fandom. We just know they like to dress up as animals and hump, right? All the film's problems are created by and solved by making things too sexual. You can escape murder by stripping your clothes off. You can yiff your way to freedom. This movie sends mixed messages, and I don't know who to root for. This film is bone dry. I am your maitre d', Rattles, and this has been a bite-sized Bone Zone.
So I got Rattles here on the camera. Unfortunately, we can see my human mouth more often than I would like.
Not all meals are meant
You
to
really like worry about that happening?
I
and
do,
actually,
yes.
I've never noticed it happen in the video ever.
That's literally
Maybe I'm
all I
just
see.
oblivious.
It's literally all I see when I'm video editing is just my weird, gross human mouth just peeking out of his head, out of his beak.
Everybody says thank you.
But yeah, Rattles, fun to make, fun to perform in. He's a great jaw movement.
Today's meal comes in 2 courses. A double feature of puppetry and swearing with all.
I think that my favorite thing about Rattles is that you could, if you had someone draw Rattles and hand it to someone else, you would know that was Rattles, as opposed to any other fursuit.
Any other time of the year.
Even skull suits.
I, for one, am thankful I won't have to watch these movies again. So get stuffed, Gobble gobble, motherfuckers. Rattles out.
We're almost done our presentation. So yeah, Call Play F has changed quite a lot, which is why we are now the Furry Film Burrow. Because we are quite far from our origins of furry video essays, where now we have B-movie reviews, we have Uplift audio shorts, we did Tempo Talks for a while. We're still doing the video essays, but just much fewer and far between, but of higher quality and caliber, and those are still going to be labeled as culturally apt.
And we also have things that are like the poetry readings and the short fiction readings, and it's more of an umbrella now.
Yeah, the Voice of Dog podcast.
We have more of those coming. We have one that is a modern AU of
Wind in the
Willows that I wrote as a joke, and they accepted. And then and read.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually brought back their original narrator, like host for the series, because he was so excited about it. And then we have a story that is in I forget which volume of Heat. I think it's like 14. That was the only story ever to get a perfect rating from all the reviewers. And it's not even risque. It's just like high concept romance, high concept furry romance here on Furry Film Burrow. But that one we have the recording of that one from Voice of Dog, and then we did things like the dual language one from Umbala, if you recall, the frog one.
Yes.
And yeah, because like it's more fun for us as creators if we can say like this is a vehicle for all these sorts of interrelated furry things, as opposed to just like we are stuck doing this one specific thing forever, and if we can't think of anything, or if we think of something that doesn't fit, we just can't do it.
Yeah. It's,
Case in point, Furry Scene.
That's right. So now we have 2 sneak previews that are exclusive to this stream, but will ultimately be published on their own right. The Furry Scene is a concept of going to different furry scenes in different cities without actually having to travel there. We have 2 finished Furry Scene Winnipeg and Furry Scene Singapore, excuse me. Furry Scene Singapore. And I believe we were working on Furry Scene Poland.
Watching Culturally Aft.
And this is the Furry Scene.
So if you in the crowd, chat,
would
like to do one of these,
Winnipeg.
We have a kit
hit us
for
up.
you.
Have a variety
Yeah.
of furries working on all sorts of projects, from video games, art, conventions. We got streamers, we got fursuit makers, and nuclear physicists. Oh my, even the music right now.
Hey, you're watching Culturally Aft, and this is the Furry Scene in Singapore. But of course, there are plenty of vloggers too, and musicians, be it electronic or acoustic. Singapore's furry fandom first started off on online forums and very tiny Fursuit meetups. But in just over a decade, it grew to a 100-strong community. In Singapore, we do have small informal meetups like Meals Together and gaming at arcade centers. There are big meetups too, organized by our local community, SG First.
So yeah, that was our sneak preview for Furry Scene. Here's just some raw footage of our upcoming Bone Zones.
Before we do, Global Furry Television is actually a Global Furry Television is actually like an established media collective that does this kind of stuff. And they're concentrated on mostly Asia. And so they do like multi-language news broadcasts about the fandom and upcoming media and cool stuff like that. And it's a really, really cool space. And so I was really happy to be able to land them to do one of our furry scene videos, because we just don't get to see, like, the cross-pollination is really nice because we just don't get to see as much non-English language furry content.
That's true. We are somewhat stuck with the language barrier with a lot of our furry research and outreach, and I'm hoping furry scene will be an avenue to help break down that barrier.
Yeah, we've been like, and we're two monolinguals, right? Like, we're two almost completely monolingual English speakers.
Okay, I know maybe enough French to know to ask where the bathroom is.
Yeah, and so like I had to hit up Slate, who did the illustrations for Uplift, like the or not Uplift, did the illustrations for Windfall, and watch Belfour and Lupin with me, because the English dub isn't out yet and the translation is just Google Translate for the subtitles, and be like, no, like, tell me what's happening now. It's like listening in at the UN. And so that's the only way I've been able to watch Belfour and Lupin.
So here's a little behind the scenes for Bone Zone. So I pre-record Rattles' audio, and then I sync it just with off of my phone and the microphone on the camera. So then when I take it back in the editing software, I can just line up the audio that the camera picked up off of my cell phone with the audio waveform of the original recording to get a nice clean take. And you can hear all of the clickety-clack of his beak.
That's real nice noise for you.
Yeah. All right, and that is the end of the video portion of the presentation. Let's bring it back to our original...
Do we want to open it up for questions before we...
Well, we do not have a lot of concurrent video viewers in the live stream, but I would like to shout out Corey Coyote, who left a comment saying he got a great flashback. And I know he's been a long-time subscriber. And I would just like to thank everyone who joined us for this stream. We have had at least twice as many concurrent viewers as I had in person for Vancouver last week, because our panel happened concurrently with the Fursuit Parade.
That's happened to me too. Like, I've had the Fursuit Parade go past my panel, blocking people from getting into it.
Oh, brutal.
So no one can even go. No one was willing to jump through the conga line of fursuiters to get to my panel.
Yes, if you've done panels at FurryCons before and you were unlucky enough to get stuck during any of the major popular events, whether it's the parade or like the dance comp, turnout can be troublesome. We will be at Fernal Equinox next week. This presentation is basically going to be the same, but without tempo and half as long. You can also watch my 2-hour lecture on a queerer furry history at Fernal Equinox next week. Or later on this channel if you can't be bothered to make it to a convention. We may also, as of right now, we are still planning on going to Anthrocon, but that could change depending on geopolitics. Anything from you, Tempo? We do not have a lot of cues, just lots of congratulations.
Let's see. So going forward, things I'm excited about and kind of working on. We just did a whole bunch of like mini scripts, like short form scripts that are gonna start coming out soon. So those are in the works. We've been trying to explore like what kinds of B movies are the best fit for Rattles and the Bone Zone. Because like obviously they have to be furry, but there's just so much out there that we could be doing. And so the one I thought was really fun was we picked the Corduroy movie. which is like a kids movie, but it's shot like a horror movie for some
It
reason.
is weirdly shot like a horror movie, but it's still very childish and whimsical.
Yeah, like it's in a mall at night, and even before like Five Nights at Freddy's and all these jump scare games came out, I was already thinking it was kind of a weird vibe for a kids movie. But yeah, and so we decided that it was baby's first horror movie. Nothing bad happened, but it could have, and that's sort of the, like that we thought that was fun to explore. Let's see, we've had to be a little bit picky about what werewolf movies we pick because
there are so many. I think we could probably do, like, I should even consider making a werewolf OC to host just werewolf movie reviews. Sometimes on the full moon during the summer, our local indie cinema, The Review in Toronto, will host an all werewolf movie day. They have all of their programmers pick a old werewolf film, and like you can get a day pass and just watch werewolf movies all day until nighttime, and then howl at the moon.
Howl at the moon, I assume.
Yeah. So also I'd like to shout out Inobi for making our new banner art, which I have displayed now on the stream. That features Rattles, Tempo, and myself. That's my new bunny. We have our long-term supportive patron, Arbitrary Plaid, in the audience there as well. We got the logos for our shows, Bone Zone, Uplift, and Culturally Eft. And of course, our new brand logo, Furry Film Burrow. And I will also take this opportunity to show off Rusty 2.0, aka Arrkay, because it is now my adoptive main Sona. Oh, he's missing his eyebrows. One sec.
While he gets the eyebrows, for those of you who aren't in or near Canada, the Furry Film Burrow logo is a version
National
of
Film Board.
Yeah, the National Film Board has like a big, like Walt Whitman eye on legs as its image, and so that's a pastiche of, much the same as the other one is an homage to public television in the US.
Yeah, and I would love to see Furry Film Burrow evolve into a furry public access kind of thing. I would love to platform budding creators in some way and try new ideas as we have constantly done throughout our 10-year history. I would like to introduce everyone on the live stream to Arrkay the Fursuit, aka his stage name, Rusty Theseus Shacklefur. And he just made his very first convention debut at Vancouver last week, and you can see him next week at Fernal Equinox and probably every convention I go to for the next several years.
Incorporating the latest 3D printing technology.
That's right, yeah. He needs a little maintenance after his very first convention out, but he's pretty much done and ready to go. He has this beautiful stripy orange fur that I salvaged from a luxury coat. Yeah, and I got to figure out how I'm going to incorporate him into the new show. If we should maybe bring back the effed up dates or something else involving rabbits. As 1.0 made his last appearance in Harvey Speaks before getting disassembled because some of Rusty 2.0, like his ears, feet, and tummy, are actually original Rusty.
It's very much a Ship of Theseus sort of thing when you rebuild a fursuit.
That's his middle name. Just one question from our live chat. Is any other future ideas we're cooking up?
So, as far as Uplift goes, I have had some requests since I've done tabletop RPG work in the past to make a Uplift RPG, and I'm beginning to seriously consider it because, like, there isn't a ton of, like, all ages kind of light on rules, like, future utopia RPG stuff out there. Like, that's just non-existent, even in Furry, and so I thought that would be fun. Another thing that we want to keep doing is we want to keep working with like sometime in the near future, I would like to bring in Fur Science and have them do another kind of like little report and check in and say like, hey, how's it going? You know,
Sure.
what are we studying right now? What are we learning?
Yeah, I did a great sit down with Nuka last spring and used some of that footage in our latest video on Is Furry Queer? So we'll see more of that footage being used in the future, especially as we make our video about politics.
My one of the things on my agenda of the moment that I'm considering, because like I said, there are all these ideas that float around, and then we have to pick the ones that are like most ready to go. And one of the things that I've found really fascinating is the way in which Belfour and Lupin has arrived on the furry scene, where it's not in English, and we're like,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Really excited for it.
Yeah, like we're just still like, ooh, I want to see the cute like canines. Show me more of them. Show me how gay they are. And
dog boyfriends.
It's true. They're so sweet. I recommend that you all go pirate. And so like, and there's just no way to view it in a lot of countries right now. Like legally, you have to steal it, and it's just bizarre. And yet we're all into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one is like, looking at shorter, like less intensive pup lifts, like these ones that continue to be like mostly audio instead of video. And it's always like, I love the video part of it. Like I love the main early 5 that have video, and the next 2 don't. But like I love it, but it also is frustrating because like I know that when I watch YouTube, oh yeah, and like I know that when I watch YouTube, a lot of the time I'm like tabbed out doing something else, or I'm not at my desk, and so I know that the audio is the critical part. And so that's the part, if I'm going to pick, right, like I have to pick audio.
For sure.
And it takes so much longer. Like it's difficult to, it is unintuitively lopsided how much time is spent doing the visuals versus the audio and script, because it takes at least twice as long to do visuals, because you have to hide every edit, and you have to get things to line up to each frame, like because we'll try to get things like frame perfect. Like that's part of what makes like cartoons really snappy and funny when you watch them, is that they're like matched to the frame, to the sound, and they wait just long enough for something to happen, and then it's really funny because they did it right. But that's hard work.
Yeah, it is very, very time consuming to do all of the editing. Often we will have an episode recorded and banked, and it's just a matter of getting to the edit. And then that's just a huge, huge time sink. And I already spend most of my working hours at my computer, to then also spend a significant portion of my non-working hours at my computer is also like a mental challenge and a hurdle to get over. But we do what we can. We do have our own pace. We have a longer script about furry and politics coming out. We have a video version of my queer furry history going to come out, but I have to figure out a way around some copyright issues with some of the video clips I use in my live show. And we are actually looking at turning a queer furry history into a book. So there is, in fact, a book in the horizon for Furry Film Burrow / Culturally Aft / Tempo and I. A non-fiction book, which I think would be a first for you, Tempo.
Yeah, like I've helped people with their non-fiction books a fair bit, but I've not really ever written one.
Well, keep an eye out for Furfag is the title I'm aiming. I'm kind of leaning towards. Which will be a queer furry history plus some essays on furry and queerness, probably through one of our established furry book retailers. And I would pretty long timeline on that. That probably isn't going to be a thing for another year or 2. The other project that we're looking at that's still in the early stages is furry art history. We've been talking back and forth for a long time about how can we talk about why furry art looks like that. And that is because furry art is incestuous, but not in the gross way. that is a different thing. It is incestuous in that it borrows from other furry creators a lot, and lots of people will use other furry art as references for their own furry art. And
It's
sort of
self-referential.
It's referential, exactly. But we can date that all the way back to like Chuck Jones and early animation. So we have a lot of history we can trace through, as well as like the 50 years of furry history. I will also be getting my hands on towards the end of this summer a rather significant cache of furry zines of original Voodies and Rao Brazzles, these zines that started the furry fandom. That is a long story that will be its own video, but we will get to explore those early tomes of furry fandom together. So keep an eye out for that towards the end of the year. In the meantime, please find us at future conventions coming up. Let's wrap it up, Tempo. Do you have any other last thoughts? Because we are over time by about 10 minutes from even our longer estimate.
Really, the only part of Culturally Aft that we haven't talked about that's really central to it is you folks. Like, we would not be here doing this if you were not watching it, and you were not on our Patreon, and you were not telling people about it. And so I really want to thank you for tuning in to our fun, creative craziness that we continually have been doing for 10 years. And it just makes me really happy that so many people are plugged into it and care a lot about it. Like, there's a ton of stuff out there you could totally be watching instead. Like, we've never had more options for what to have on our screens.
There's a line you wrote for our Queer Furry History script where furries don't make stuff to make money or become famous. And I can't say, like, I did try to make Culturally Aft my job for a while, but it never really made that kind of sustainable income. But I still kept making it after that, and after I got a real job. It's because I feel like Culturally Aft needs to be made, and Culturally Aft has topics that need to be talked about, as well as fun topics that are just fun to talk about, like B-movie reviews and dogs in space.
Yeah, and even some of our bread and butter episodes, like the Peter Rabbit one. Like, the Peter Rabbit one didn't really have any huge topical significance, but it was basically like, let me show you this thing. Same thing with the Gargoyles episode in a way. Like, it was like, let me show you the thing I'm excited about.
Yeah. Does like a piece of me is in that Gargoyles episode, and it's been such a pleasure and an honor to share that with our community. So thank all of you for subscribing to Culturally Aft. Thank you for being part of our history and our future. I think we're going to end it there. We'll see you all at the next convention. Come say hi. Come say hi to my new fursuit.
Take a picture.
Take a picture. All fursuiters love having their picture taken. And don't forget to share our videos. If you have a video of yours that you really like of ours, send it to someone you think will like it. And that's the best way to get natural growth, is by word of mouth and just sharing stuff you like. So keep sharing stuff you like. We like to see it shared. Thank all of you for being furries and being on the internet with us.
Yeah, and I want to say, I thank you for, even when you don't think it matters that you comment or whatever, or tell someone you like video or a piece of art on the internet, like, it totally matters, even if that person never gets back to you. I'm friends with quite a few artists who will say, like, oh, look at this really nice thing that someone said, or look at the response I'm getting on this. And we feel that way too. So thank all of you for being our super fans. I suspect that if you are in the stream at this point, you qualify as a super fan.
Absolutely. Okay, everyone here, have a great afternoon. We're going to shut the stream down. We're over time. So once again, from Arrkay and Tempo at the Furry Film Burrow, formerly called Culturally Aft. Thank you and have a good evening. And the stream is now ended.
Okay.
That was nice.
Yeah.